Today, we're looking at Krishna's Cool Breeze. Oh yeah. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Krishna's Cool Breeze is a part of their specialty series of inks, and it is a very nice, cool blue. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Noodler's Nibcreaper to take my notes for this video. Now, before we get to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. And up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down, immediately put it in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what do we see? It flees right up the page. This is moving. This shows us that it may not have much resistance. Very light blue to a darker blue at the top, but even the darker blue, not very dark. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. It's a darker blue at the bottom, but it's more of a mid-blue in color. Then it's a very light blue pushing up, and the darkest of the blues given, but still not a dark blue at the top. I just feel like there's not going to be a lot of resistance on this ink. And speaking of resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it is to clean out of your pens. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I say don't highlight this ink. It doesn't like it. It feathers and explodes all over the place, and parts of your writing may become unreadable. Looking at the water, we see it's completely reactivating and pulling up off the page. I see some of the dots of the rhodia coming through. Now, pen flush does the exact same thing as water, which that means for me that pen flush has no added benefit to use. So just use water to get this out of your pens. But the pen flush, other than being a little more blurred as a spot coming up, basically looks the same. Bleach is completely removing it from the paper, which is what you would expect, but there is no need to use bleach to get this from your pens. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Krishna's Cool Breeze has a viscosity of 1.72. That makes it creeping up on the like water region. That red region, we're getting closer and closer to like water, and this is a very wet ink. To find my dry times, I use the extra fine and medium nib done on my writing samples for Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Krishna's Cool Breeze has a dry time of 15 seconds, or I should say an average dry time. That makes it a very normal ink. While it is slightly faster than the average, it is a normal dry time ink. And considering how wet it is, that's pretty good. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in bottle form back when I ordered tons and tons of these bottles and waited months for them to arrive. And a whole bunch of these inks have been truly worth any inconvenience. This is worth the inconvenience of the tiny bottle, tiny opening, and occasionally tight cap. This is worth it. Nice. I mean, I'm stuck at the moment just staring at the bottle. This is nice. This is one, you need this. Okay, to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub. I use a Jinhao X450 with a medium and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, but look at the shading all over the place. Oh my goodness. Okay, extra fine. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Yes, there is shading. You wanted to know if there's shading? There's shading. A ton of it. Everywhere. 9 seconds to dry. The medium gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. And shading. All over the place. 15 seconds to dry. Now, the Scrubby lies. The Scrubby's lying to us. Scrubby says no color variation. You lie, Scrubby. Smear test? I think you could recover this. So we look at Clairefontaine. Clairefontaine with Tomoe River. We get no bleeding, we get no bleeding, we get ghosting. The 1.1, no feather, no spread. We get bits of haloing. Nice. Just cool breeze and a halo. And shading. No sheen, but hey, I don't care for sheen. We got halo and shading on Tomoe River that doesn't always give that to me. Nice. Extra fine, no feather, no spread. We get haloing. If I had a way to just zoom in and really get you there, I would. I wish I had a macro lens. I'd put a macro lens on this camera just to be able to show you that there's a nice halo on this. It's not a thick halo. It's just right there. Tiny. Nice. Shading. No sheen. Shading all over on Tomoe River. I mean, look at quick. Starts light, goes to darker. Brown starts darker and goes to light. Fantastic. Over has great shading. 13 seconds to dry. The medium has no feather, no spread. We don't have the halo. We don't have sheen, and we don't see shading. 28 seconds to dry. The scrubby, in both cases, say we're not going to get color variation, but in the writing we did. The smear test says you can't recover it. So we look at Rhodia paper. Rhodia gives us no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and shade. Nice. Nice color. Nice shade. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful just to look at. I just want to scribble this ink just to look at it. It really, my only problem, it's this. I will ink that up until that bottle's gone, and I will enjoy every bit of it. I won't feel bad when the bottle's gone. I might have to order 30 bottles of it just to get that bottle back at that point. Hope they don't stop making it by then. Breathe. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, shading, all over shade. All over, and it's beautiful. It's gentle. On a great color. 10 seconds to dry. The medium gets a little darker than the extra fine. Darker tone. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. No real color variation with the medium. 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby and the extra fine shows us we're going to get color variation. The scrubby and the medium, no color variation. And the smear test says we should be able to recover this. So I got curious and I put this in a Nibcreaper, where I can control the ink that goes down and go from light to dark. And in a flexi, and I know some people aren't going to want to consider it a flexi type pen, and don't bust my bubble, man. I don't have $1 million to go buy all the vintage pens. I get what I can. Back off! Anyway, nice color variation with it. It is great to be able to say I'm going to put it down a little heavier and get that color variation. It's going to be fantastic. This is a great ink. I wish they made it in bigger bottles. Krishna, bigger bottles. Call me. So I decided to test it on the yellow Rhodia paper to see what happens to the color with a different tone background. Of course, we have no bleeding and no ghosting. Let's compare it to the white paper. Now look at what happens. Look at this lovely turquoise that it turns. It's a nice light blue. It's light, and it's not so light I can't use it. I'm a long way from showing it, but I am absolutely beyond disappointed with like Lamy blue. It's too light for me to use, but this one is it's spot on. Beautiful. And here, with the yellow background, look at that. Look at that turquoise. Man, that makes you want to fall in love with turquoise ink. The 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We get shade. We get a lovely shade. Not as much as with the extra fine, but we do get some shading. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Lovely shading throughout.
Not a stark shade that's going on. It's not as contrast as was on the white paper, but it's still definitely there. Definitely shading. I use definitely a lot. I've really got to put a note to myself to stop saying it. I'm gonna stop. Or I'm gonna start a hashtag definitely. I don't know. 10 seconds to dry. Medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We lose the color variation, so no shading. 17 seconds to dry. Looking at the scrubby, we see tons of color variation in the extra fine scrub. None in the medium, which is exactly what we saw in the writing. On the smear test, I believe we could recover this if it was smeared while you were writing. So I decided to look at this on Krishna paper or on Hazel paper because Krishna Ink was selling it through their store. And this paper's got such great performance. I really want larger paper. I like using the A4 size books. I didn't see any A4 size books in their stuff. They only had A5 and A6. But I would love to see some of this Hazel paper in A4 size. Call me. I love it. I'll use it on every single thing and show the world this constantly. You know, the nobody that watches. But I'll see it. You'll see it. You know, hey. That's okay. I'll take it. 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We get shading on the Hazel paper. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading. A lovely, gentle shade. Looking at the word quick, it gets nice and light, little darker all the way through. Same with the brown. It's little darker, little lighter, little darker. Fox stays one tone until the cross and the X, where it usually gets darker for me. So nice. The is definitely a darker tone than what we're seeing in over. Fantastic. 7 seconds to dry. The medium, ignoring where I put my thumb. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 12 seconds to dry. The extra fine scrubby shows a little color variation, which is what we got up here. And the medium scrubby shows us none, which is what we got. The smear test, I think you could recover this if you smeared it, which makes it perfect for a pocket-sized notebook. So I looked at Strathmore calligraphy paper. These spots do not line up with writing underneath, so they're not really bleed. That's me being sloppy because I do have other writing samples over here. That's a spot where I was just aggressive putting it down. We have no real bleeding. We have no ghosting. The 1.1 gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and we lose the shading on this paper. The same tone of blue with the extra fine. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. 6 seconds to dry. Medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, sheen, or shade. 11 seconds to dry. Both scrubbies show us we're not going to get any color variation, and the smear test says you're not going to be able to recover this if you smear it. And that's all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Krishna's Cool Breeze, I would prefer to find an ink that complements that color on the page. And I've chosen Noodler's Cayenne because it is a very neat looking orange to red color. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Krishna's Cool Breeze? I think if you use this on a hot summer day, you're going to feel some chills moving down your spine. It is very cooling to look at. It is very nice. It's very calming as a blue. And I can be an excitable person. That makes this a good ink for me. I think its shading is amazing. I think it might even shade better than Noodler's Navajo Turquoise, which is saying a lot because that is a great shading ink. This is a nice ink. You should go out of your way to try and get this one. Not that I'm going to buy you a bottle. Thanks for watching.